We went into the forest for what felt like a short afternoon hike, calm and unfamiliar, but strange sounds started repeating, like the woods were looping. My watch stopped, the sun didn't move, and we couldn't find the trail back no matter how far we walked. We stepped out thinking hours had passed, and discovered that years were gone instead. Today's story is entitled, We Walked Into the Forest for an Hour, and it was uploaded to the r/NoSleep subreddit by Throwaway Time Loss. And it starts like this. We didn't plan anything ambitious. That's the part that still messes with me. It was supposed to be a short hike, an hour, maybe two, a local forest preserve we'd been to before, well-marked trails and a small parking lot. Even a map posted near the entrance. My friend Evan joked that it was baby's first forest. I checked my phone before we went in. 2:17 p.m. Plenty of daylight. The first 30 minutes were normal. Birds crunching leaves, sunlight filtering through the trees in that calm, golden way that makes you forget about time entirely. We talked about work, about how good it felt to be away from the screens for once. Then, Evan stopped walking. "Did you hear that?" he asked. I listened at first. Nothing. Then, footsteps, not ours. Slow, deliberate, somewhere deeper in the trees. I laughed it off. Other hikers, deer, anything but what my brain briefly suggested. We kept going. That's when things started repeating. The same fallen log, the same crooked pine with that split trunk, the same cluster of rocks shaped like steps. We passed each of them 3 times, each time from a different direction. Evan pulled out his phone to check the GPS. No signal, he said. That's weird. I checked mine. Same thing. Worse, my phone still said it was 2:17 p.m. Battery glitch, I said, though it didn't sound convincing even to me. The forest grew quieter the farther we walked. Not that peaceful quiet. Empty quiet. No birds, no insects. Even the wind seemed to stop. The sunlight didn't shift. The shadows didn't move. The sun stayed fixed directly overhead, like it was painted onto the sky. We should have been exhausted, but we just weren't. Hours passed, or at least they felt like hours, but neither of us got hungry. My legs didn't ache. My throat wasn't dry. It was like our bodies had forgotten how time worked. At some point, Evan said, I think we should turn back. I nodded, relieved. We walked straight for what felt like forever, but the forest didn't change. No clearing, no trailhead, just trees that looked identical, spaced too evenly, like copies of the same object, pasted again and again. Then, the sounds started. Whispering. Not voices exactly, but something close, like breath moving through the leaves in patterns that felt intentional. Whenever we stopped, it stopped. Whenever we walked, it followed, always just out of sight. I don't know how long we wandered like that. It could have been minutes, it could have been days even. Time didn't mean anything in there. Eventually, we saw the tree line. It felt like relief hitting all at once. We broke into a run, crashing through brush, barely caring where we stepped. The moment we crossed out of the trees, everything slammed back into place. The sun was setting, a real sunset, orange and red, moving fast. My legs suddenly burned, my mouth went dry, my stomach cramped so hard I doubled over. Evan collapsed onto the grass, gasping like he had been holding his breath for hours. I checked my phone. 9:42 p.m. See? Evan said weakly. We were just turned around. I almost believed him until we got back to the parking lot. It was empty. No cars, no lights, just a chain blocking the exit and a weathered sign bolted to it. Preserve closed at dusk. That didn't make any sense. There had been at least 6 cars when we arrived. We walked to the ranger station down the road. The lights were on inside, and a man in a uniform stared at us through glasses like he'd seen a ghost. "You're alive?" he said when he opened the door. "What?" I asked. He grabbed a clipboard with shaking hands. "You two went missing 3 years ago." I laughed. Evan laughed too. It sounded hysterical and wrong. "That's not funny," Evan said. "We were only gone a few hours." The ranger didn't smile. He showed us a wall covered in flyers. Our faces stared back at us. Older photos, sure, but unmistakably it was us. Missing. Presumed dead. Our families had moved. Evan's parents were gray and crying when they saw him again. My younger sister was suddenly taller than me. Our jobs were gone, our apartments had been emptied. Life had just continued without us. And yet, we hadn't aged a day. Doctors ran tests. Psychologists asked questions. Everyone wanted to know what happened in the forest. We don't talk about it much anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I'll feel it. That same stillness, that same pressure. Like the world had paused just for me. And I'll think about how easy it would be to step back between the trees. Because part of me knows something important. Time didn't pass in that forest. It was taken. The end. That was really good. I like that story a lot. First off, let's talk about what we could do differently. I think a lot of these situational stories are really good. I like them a lot, but at the end of the day, you can't really do a whole lot differently if you just happen to be walking the same path to work and get abducted by aliens, or if you just happen to go on a hike with your friends and get swooped up into the forest. So one, I think kind of taking out some paracord or something, because I'm an Eagle Scout, so I wouldn't have gone on this hike without, a big sack of supplies and axe, types of stuff like that, just in case. I like to be super over-prepared for stuff. So maybe I wouldn't have literally everything I would have, but I would definitely try to, for sure, at least mark those same kind of things that you keep seeing over and over again. So that way you could be sure that you're walking in circles. And I know that just as they did in the story, I probably would never split up from my friend because that would be super suspicious, especially if something was following you. And then maybe I'd try and hold still and get my bearings and see where we were. That, or if I really noticed that I wasn't getting tired, maybe just keep sprinting. Because if you're not getting tired, then there'd be kind of no reason to not just sprint everywhere instead of just walking. Maybe they could have made it out sooner. I don't know. But I know that without the hunger, without the kind of urgency that being a human gives you, they didn't really have a reason to want to go fast other than them just thinking it was weird. So I definitely, as always, would have probably just pushed the bounds a little bit, tried to figure out the rules, and then, once you figure out the rules of the box, you can figure out how to get out of the box, of course. But if you just play along, then it takes much, much longer in their case to get out. Now, the lesson for today's story. I think for those of you who've seen the movie Click, it has a very similar lesson. And I think that is, take advantage of the time now and appreciate the people who are around you and go slow. In the movie, Adam Sandler, he ends up getting this kind of magical TV remote that allows him to skip around. And the remote learns what he likes to skip so that he doesn't have to hit the button every time. So getting ready in the morning, waking up, sleeping, driving to work, all these things. And slowly it adds up until he ends up skipping large chunks of time, 5 years at a time, 10 years at a time, 20 years at a time, because he's skipped out everything that he's kind of deemed like a menial thing. But it's only apparent later that in those times when he's skipping, he's not really, it's not that he's skipping the experience, is that he literally is kind of just going away in his brain, and then his body kind of just goes on autopilot. And then once he's back to controlling things in normal again. And so he loses a lot of the relationships in his life because he was on autopilot. He was basically just a robot. He just goes away, and nobody could figure out why. And so I think kind of taking from that one and taking from this one, as people, life moves, right? And as Ferris Bueller says, life moves pretty fast. If you don't take a minute to stop and look around, you just might miss it. And I know I'm not saying it exactly, but that's the point. We're here to do stuff. We're not here to sit behind a screen all day. We're not here to just hang out. We're not here to binge watch TV. In the age that we live in, there is more content to consume. There's more things to do that are basically meaningless. than there has ever been in the entire history of the entire world. Before, when you had to go chop down a tree if you wanted to be warm for a day, your priorities were a little different. But now, whereas we can go to work and we can just kind of turn our brains off, and then we can come home and then we can flip on some TV and turn your brains off. You don't need to go into this magic forest to lose years at a time. You don't need to go in the forest to wonder where all the time went. Why didn't more happen? We are put here to do things. We have the ability to do things, and we have a great ability to do nothing. And I think more and more, especially if you talk to anyone who's 40 or 50 or 60 or anyone older than that, it's so easy to let the time slip through your fingers. It's so easy to get such in a kind of a rut of being okay with just being in a system and, well, just getting in the habit of doing things the same way every day, that when you really, really take a minute to stop and look around, it has been 10, 20, 30 years, and nothing has really changed. I think and I hope that when I'm older, I will have acquired a bunch of skills, a bunch of cool things, and a bunch of abilities, and have read lots of books, and have gone to many places across the globe, and have done so many cool things. Because if I get to the end, and I know I'm religious, but if I get to the end and God shows me kind of a stat sheet for my life, and he says, oh yeah, you were playing video games or watching TV for a grand total of 30 years over the course of your life, I'm going to be super bummed. Like, I'm going to be so bummed. Now, with that being said, is video games bad? Is watching TV bad? Is watching movies bad? No. But what I am saying is have a life. Have your own life. Do things. Be productive. Learn skills. You can do most of the skills while you're watching TV, even if it's that big of a deal. But do something and be something. Just being a little sheep, doing your little thing, working until you die, or working and then having a little bit of freedom, that's no way to live. That's not how we were made to live. That's not how our ancestors lived. And so being a part of that passed on RNA and DNA, that's not why and how we should live. And that's why so many people are depressed today, because they don't feel like they have a purpose. But it's up to us to go grab that purpose. It's up to us to obtain that purpose. It's up to us to find it and be it and do it and make sure that there has never been and never ever will be someone who did it better. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to live in ancient Greece or ancient Rome or in the Industrial Revolution when there truly was so many people. I'm not saying like there's nothing and no one living with this great purpose today. But what I'm saying is when there was people with names that said, I'm going to go and I'm going to be the very best that there's ever been at psychology or philosophy or inventing things or owning factories or whatever else, and they just went for it, you know? That would have been so cool to see. And again, I'm not saying there's none of that today, but what I am saying is there's more people than there's ever been, but there's not more great people than there's ever been. So why not? Well, it's up to us. So, with all that, I think that's a great place to stop for today. Hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Cece, and this is The Crucible of Character. I like to read stories, and I really enjoyed today's story and the message that I got from it. If you got something different, if you would have done something different, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's story like how I did, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more daily stories. I really appreciate all your support. And with that, I love you all. Goodbye.